And we're back with more exciting adventures of the Incredible Hoax. I am Chris.
I am Mark.
If we look like we're standing, it's because we are. I put a standing desk in, and that we have to be mindful now not to bang on the table. So I'm going to do the best. I'm just going to have to just put my hands like this. I think if you're listening to this, I just put my hands behind my back because I can't help but bang on this table as I talk. So I'm going to have a hell of a time not doing that. So how about you? Can you keep your hands to yourself, or are you going to hit the table?
Well, I've already got them behind my back, so yeah. I'm ready.
We're very talk with our handsy type people. But you have a subject, a topic, something to present to the folks.
I do actually.
Yeah.
Hey, you ever see a movie and then you're like, it ends up being a flop, and you're like, hey, that shouldn't have been a flop. So we're going to talk about that. So movies that were flops but shouldn't have been, and why?
Because they were really good.
Because they were actually good movies. Yeah,
good movies. So you have one on the tip of your tongue?
For example,
2
weeks ago, I watched 2004's The Alamo.
Oh,
and I really have always loved that movie.
Yeah.
I even saw it at the theater. So It was a bomb. Yeah, maybe, but not on the count of me. I actually was there with popcorn and actually was in a theater doing my part to try to help it be a box office success. But I didn't get enough helpers. But yeah, it is a great movie even to this day. It holds up still. You got great performances. It's certainly the most accurate of the Alamo related films and TV
on the whole.
shows. Yeah, on the whole, it's not perfect, but it's a story after all. It's a movie. Yeah. I don't expect it to be 100%.
Sure,
but it's as close, I think, as you're going to get in terms of to still be entertaining but it's a great show, and it's a shame that it was not a success. If you remember, it was supposed to come out like that winter, and then they decided to push it back.
They re-edited or reshoot or something?
Well, they just pushed it back to the spring. My guess was part of that was that it was going to be Ron Howard directed initially. And and they had a creative difference thing.
Yeah.
And I think with all that and them
supposed to have Russell Crowe was going to be like Davy Crockett or something at one point.
Yes, they were going after him for Davy Crockett.
Yeah.
And
that's when Russell Crowe was like Gladiator, huge guy.
Oh yeah, he was big at the time. Yeah. My understanding too is they were concerned at the time it would get kind of lost in Oscar season.
Right.
So they pushed it back, and they probably were thinking, well, early April, that's, of course, when the Alamo happened, we'll catch up with the historical moment, the anniversary, and that'll help sell the movie. Well, I got to tell you, I don't remember them really selling the movie. Their marketing, I don't know. I don't remember them really marketing much in the way of really getting out, excuse me, the film goers to go see that film. I don't remember that at all. It was just very low key release, and it should have got been a bigger deal, but I don't know. It's almost like they saw it and like an early whatever, and it wasn't quite what they were thinking, and they just kind of released it.
I don't know. They spent a fortune on that movie. And for the longest, you could go see that set, but they made the set out of like styrofoam, which they often do for movie sets, and like it was like falling apart and melting and stuff.
Oh wow!
It's all like styrofoam, so it was like shrinking and anyway, like going around.
Well, there was a ranch on Dripping Springs, Texas, where they filmed it, and for several years, I understand that it was still there on the ranch.
Yeah,
and apparently they were letting some visitors go check it out, but last I heard, there was a storm went through and destroyed much of the set.
I think, don't hold me to it, and I haven't researched this because I didn't know about this topic until we rolled. That's one thing, just FYI, listening to the show. A lot of times we just do this like kind of live. It's recorded, obviously, but it's basically shot live. So we'll have a chance to like Google and research certain things. One of us will spring it on the other.
And you're getting our raw reactions, for whatever that's worth.
I think the John Wayne set still stands, and it's like a tourist thing somewhere.
Yes, Brackettville. They closed it because I actually went down there. I don't know if you remember this story, but I actually went down to Braggarville, and at the time it was closed.
Yeah.
Since I was down there, a new ownership group bought it and was hoping to reopen it as a tourist site. But
site.
Yeah, but anyway, I don't know if they were able to pull that off.
Well, that was a good movie. I saw it in the theater. I saw it in Temple, Texas, at the theater in the mall, which at the time when that movie came out was actually a little bit nicer theater than the ones in Waco. I don't know if that's a true statement today, but at the time they had a certain auditorium that was a little larger at the Temple Malls, the Premier inside Temple Mall.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that, like I said, I don't know if that's true anymore. I haven't been there in a while. I've been to the IMAX in Temple, but I haven't been to the other theaters. Anyway, and so it was a really good experience, a really good theater and stuff, and it was a really good. I liked it. I liked the movie. I've seen it on like HBO and whatnot in the last year, even, I think, and I've had it on. It's a little long. It probably could be trimmed a little bit.
We're talking about the 2004 version. That was a little long to you.
Okay. It felt a little long. Felt a little like they could have tightened it up just a little bit. I mean, I don't know how to say that. Like, I know the whole point of the Alamo is they're inside of a siege and they're facing certain death and things like that.
Right.
And then you have these different movies where like people are trapped in something, and then they're like coming to grips with the fact that they're going to die. Like they know they're going to die. It's like they know it's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah.
And so there's some point you're kind of watching that type of movie, you're like, Jesus Christ, would you just kill them off already and let's move on? It's like it's kind of hard to stay in that spot. And I know it's kind of the point of the movie because they were stuck there for 13 days or whatever.
Right.
But it's just like, so I love the movie. I like it. I highly regard it. Kevin Page, who was Mr. Kinney in RoboCop, he was Davy Crockett's right-hand man in that movie. It doesn't matter, but anytime you see a RoboCop reference in the movie, I'm like, hey, that's Mr. Kinney. I see Roddy Cox, like Deliverance was on cable the other night. I was like, look.
Yes.
It's RoboCop. Anyway, so yeah, I like it. Yeah, it should have been a bigger hit. I don't know about Oscars and stuff, but it should have been a bigger hit for sure.
Yeah, I mean that awards and stuff like that. Who knows? But in terms of it being a bigger success than it was, it really should have been. It got caught up into the whole Mel Gibson's The Passion had come out. And it was a phenomenon, and it was released. It had come out around the same time, so I know it got caught up into that because some of the same people that would have been interested in the Alamo.
Yeah.
I think we're off going to see The Passion of the Christ, and so I could see that negatively impacting that film. But it's a shame because $100 million is what the budget was, and the movie made like $25 million.
Yeah,
that's like not terrible. Good. That's not good at all. It's like no one showed up for that movie except me, apparently. And it's just a shame. It was a great movie and should have done much better than that. I have other examples, but that was the one that came to mind recently. Do you have one maybe?
Yeah, I'm not going to do a Western. I got one in mind that's a Western. I want to do two Westerns in a row. I'll circle back to the other one. The Nice Guys. Speaking of Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe and
your favorite actor right now.
What's his name?
Yeah, Ryan.
I'm drawing a blank. My favorite actor. I can't think of the name.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Yeah, I love Ryan Gosling. Why did I just draw a blank on his name? I like him, but I couldn't think of his name.
It's a long day.
Got a brain fart. Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, written, I believe. I know it was directed by Shane Black. I assume he wrote it because he usually writes his own material. Highly influenced by his own works for his buddy cop movies. He did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and then obviously Lethal Weapon is the big famous one of his buddy. They're not cops in this movie, but the buddy action duo movies. People forget about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang Bang. That's a good movie that people forget about too. But anyway, The Nice Guys is funny. It's got good action. It's rock solid. it's Ryan Gosling is like just acting his ass off, chewing the scenery. It's real over the top. He had gotten in my opinion, I think he's a really good actor. He's like one of my favorites. He was one of those guys, if I was like making movies, I would totally make him my, like Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio. I'd totally like make Ryan Gosling my guy in a heartbeat. But anyway, he had done all these movies in a row where he was just kind of quiet and stiff. He was doing the whole like minimalist, like looking and like trying to act with just a raised eyebrow to look. Well, that's great and all, but what Ryan Gosling really good at is like talking. he's a really good talker. He talks in the movie. He's like talks good, and it was like he became loquacious again, and like he was really funny and he really good. And of course, Russell Crowe's a great straight man to that. But anyway, it didn't make any money that I know of. I think it even got a limited release. I don't think it even came to Waco in the theaters because I was looking for it. And then, but now I think it's kind of a cult classic because they play it on HBO and Cinemax like constantly. It's on all the time on there. So I wouldn't doubt that it's some kind of a cult classic now because, and I totally wish it would get a sequel. It was so good. Like it's the 70s. They're private detectives in the 70s. It's just a unique look, funny. It's just hell, I just liked it. I thought it should have been a hit. Everybody I know that's seen it likes it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that movie, Shane Black he had heard that Inherent Vice was in development.
Yeah.
And of course, he had his idea for The Nice Guys.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh boy, this is a problem. He knew that they were kind of similar.
Right.
And so there was a definite effort on his part to get that out first before Inherent Vice. And I think that rush to get it out, including the studio to get it out, might have undercut
like a marketing rush.
A marketing rush, and it didn't build up any excitement or awareness of it. And it's a quirky movie. It's one of those things where I don't think it's not a movie that I would expect to make 500 million plus.
No, not at all.
But it should have been a hit. It should have. There's plenty of quirky movies that have made 150 to 200 million dollars, and it could have found that audience.
Yeah.
I think they were there. Just I think they probably did rush it and to get it out ahead of Inherent Vice. And it's a shame because it's kind of its own movie.
Yeah.
It does a different take.
Inherent Vice and other than being in the 70s and detectives, that's it. The comparison
stops there. So it's a shame they felt they had to rush. But anyway.
Now, I agree. I love Inherent Vice. Don't get me wrong. I could easily put it on this list. I would put Nice Guys on this list over Inherent Vice just because Nice Guys is way more universally acceptable than Inherent Vice. Inherent Vice is very niche.
Yes.
Not for a wide audience. It's a very small percentage of people who are going to dig that movie. Whereas Nice Guys, I could totally see Nice Guys could have been like, like a date night movie, but not your traditional rom-com. Like you want a date night, but still like a little action. Like it would have been a great date night action movie.
Yeah.
It was universal. It was
yeah,
cool costuming. I know with Trish, she eats up the wardrobes in movies.
Well, in the trailers that I saw for it, it wasn't like the trailers were off. It wasn't like because sometimes you'll see a movie and you'll reflect on the trailer and go, you marketed this all wrong. Well, I don't think that necessarily was the case there because they were trying to sell that it was quirky and that it was funny.
Yeah.
And that, of course, there was a mystery there. So they were hitting the right beats. I don't know. They just sometimes it's where you're marketing and where you're selling, and they didn't really find their audience.
I don't know. At the time, Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling did not seem like an obvious pairing. Now I totally get it, and I've seen the movie. Like I totally get it. Like it's great. Right. But I remember when the commercials and previews came out, like Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling. That seems like a weird. That does not jive to me. I think that might have been a little bit of the apprehension, I would think, to some audiences because Russell Crowe, usually plays, pretty heavy stuff. And then you have Ryan Gosling. He'll do a mix of heavy, and then he'll do some more commercial picture.
Yeah.
And then you mix them together. It's like, well, what is this going to be? Is this? And then the trailer has got like slapsticky humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's got the cigarette, and he drops it in his underwear, and he's on the toilet.
Right.
Remember that clip being the trailer?
Yeah.
I can see how the audience is going, man, I don't know. That looks kind of odd to me.
Right.
I could see that'd be a little odd, and you would say, I'll skip. I'll go see something else, a little safer.
Well, especially if it's actors you're not used to seeing in a kind of a raunchy comedy or a quirky comedy. They were known, at least for the 5 years before that thing came out, more for dramatic material. So that could have been working against them because people just aren't ready to see you in another guise. That's happened plenty of times in comedy where people are not ready to see you in comedy, you know? And, and there are some actors that I think historically tried comedy and even though they were great actors, were not good at it. I remember Marlon Brando was in several comedies, and he just was not a funny guy.
Right.
The closest he got to funny was when he mocked his own performance in The Freshman. And he's mocking, of course, Corleone from Godfather.
What's even funnier is when Dom DeLuise did Marlon Brando in The Godfather in was it Robin Hood Men in Tights? Yeah, he did it in Robin Hood Men in Tights. And he was the guy that he goes to, or the bad guy goes to get help. Yeah.
I remember him being in one of the Mel Brooks movies. Was it Robin Hood?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Dom DeLuise doing the. Oh, God bless him. That was awesome. He's like, you put it succinctly. It's like, what? My favorite line of that movie. You put it succinctly. It's like, what? And he goes, succinctly. He goes, oh, yeah, I do that. Like that whole scene's classic. The rest of the movie's but take the Dom DeLuise scene in Robin Hood Men in Tights and just cut it and watch just that scene. It's classic. It's 4 stars. Anyway, all right. What's your next? We'll shoot for it. Well, I'll be quicker on my next one.
Well, I have one more that this will probably be controversial, but in my opinion,
we'll start an uproar. People will be marching and picketing.
I thought the sequel to Pitch Black, it's called The Chronicles of Riddick, is a much better movie. It became a flop. It's a shame. I know he's fading. I'm losing Chris on this one. He hates Vin Diesel. But anyway, he just totally bailed on us, folks.
All right, go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to do it. I love it.
Anywho, I thought David Toohey had the right idea. If you were going to do a continuation, don't just fall into the trap like the Alien franchise where you just keep, another monster in an enclosed environment. Oh, wow. He's like, okay, let's have another adventure of the Riddick character, not necessarily have him be in a place where he has to use his vision, seeing in the dark, to save people, you know. He removed that from as a plot device. Okay. So he decided to expand the universe. And if you see his unrated or the director's cut, let's just say the director's cut. Yeah. It adds more to the story. There's a lot more fullness to the background of the characters, and it's a good movie. Is it great? No, but to be a bomb like it was, it's a shame because it's much better than I think especially if you see the director's cut, than what people might remember. So if you like sci-fi action, it's a movie worth revisiting, I think.
All right. Well, that's the Vin Diesel.
I knew that would kill this show. I just totally killed it.
Well, supposedly there's a video game that came around all the time. It was like some Escape from Butcher Bay or something.
Yeah, and it was highly praised.
It was like really highly praised. I never got around to playing it, and it was so highly praised. I think they remastered it for. I think that was like a PS3 game, and they brought it up to PS4, or it was PS2 that brought it to PS3. I know they got a remastering at one point, which is usually indicative it's a pretty good game. And then people highly praise that game. It just suffers from the Vin Diesel effect for me. I mean, I've tried. I can't even watch the Fast and Furious movies. I'm telling you, it's not like I haven't tried. Something about that guy I don't like, and it's like the best thing. Somebody else was talking about him too, and they agreed with me. Some conversation. It wasn't necessarily a movie buff, but we got to talking about Vin Diesel, and it's like I don't feel sorry. I have no empathy for him or sympathy for him. It's a lot like Steven Seagal. Like Vin Diesel typically plays this ultra cool badass that is never like, never like an underdog or anything like that. And that was the problem with Steven Seagal is like he just would kill people indiscriminately without any challenge. And what are his two best movies? Well, the Under Siege movies. Well, why were the Under Siege movies the two best Steven Seagal movies? Because those movies he actually had a challenge, and it was hard for him to beat the bad guys.
Right, and he actually got help too.
Right. Yes, and he was assisted by people.
Yeah. It was a group effort.
Vin Diesel, now he does get assistance, and he does it's not like he just walks in and just kills everybody and with his bare hands and stuff like Seagal does, but he kind of carries that same kind of, to me, that feel, persona, something. It's just like I don't relate to him like immediately. I don't know which way he carries himself. So I don't know, something about it I just don't dig. And I remember when Pitch Black, the infamous Pitch Black, I mean, you saw it, and there's a whole other guy that saw it, and they had praised it so, and I watched it, and I'm like, it's a regular goddamn movie. I don't know why y'all made this out to be like the second coming of cinema. And then I saw Fast and Furious and all the other stuff, and like I don't know. I mean, you're right. A lot of people think that those movies are completely under. And then they came out with Riddick, the third one. Yeah, and that totally bombed too, I think. Like the only movies of his that make money are the Fast and Furious movies. Everything else bombs. Like literally, they all bomb.
Well, I think
unless you count Galaxy, which I don't know how he did say Groot. I don't know if that's fair.
Well, the early on, he'd had that the first Triple X. I think it did moderately well. Of course, the sequel I don't think did very well.
Didn't they like reboot it with him?
That was 2019, wasn't it? January 2019, when he finally came back to that franchise.
Wasn't there like an Ice Cube one?
Yeah, State of the Union. Yeah, it was not very good. Well, yeah, it wasn't very memorable.
No. That would not be on the list of great movies that didn't do well. That would be a bad movie that didn't do well.
But anyway, I would just say specifically about the franchise, I like what he does there, because there is like the hard, tough exterior, but there are moments where he will show his emotional side. Right. They're there. It's one of those things where if an actor's not working for you, it's just what else can you say? But
it just doesn't work for somebody. I don't know what it is.
But there are moments. There are moments in that franchise where he clearly has those moments where the teenage girl he ends up trying to be a mentor and kind of a father figure to in the Chronicles of Riddick ends up being captured, and her fate ends up being a sad one. And so you feel for him, because I mean he clearly feels the loss there anyway. Right. So anyway, if you have not seen Chronicles of Riddick, I recommend it, especially the director's cut, if you can find it.
And the video game, Escape from Butcher Bay? Like Riddick, I think it's called Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I remember, Escape from Butcher Bay.
Yeah, it's a highly regarded game. I never got around to playing it. I would have played the game. I have to admit, I would have played the game.
There was an anime film that's like 45 minutes. I own a copy, obviously, but I'm a Riddick fan, so anyway.
It's like the weirdest thing that's like a weird little sub like
tangent
sub franchise. Like it's like a sub franchise. That'd be a whole show. What's a sub franchise you really love? Like you're really into it, but nobody else really talks about it. You can probably say that about
this might be one because I'm very much love that franchise, but it doesn't get as much, which is why I've added to the show.
Well, it
doesn't get a whole lot of attention. Dark Fury, it's a 45-minute like anime film.
Yeah,
it's a prequel to Chronicles of Riddick,
yeah.
and it's excellent.
Yeah,
it shows what happens immediately after Pitch Black. Obviously, it's animation, but it's Vin Diesel doing the voice, and anyway, it's excellent. It's worth checking out also for fans that might be interested.
All right. If you want to catch up with
Chronicles of Riddick, Dark Fury.
It's more about Riddick.
See it once, see it often.
I just got to tell myself it's more about Riddick, less about Vin Diesel. More about Riddick, less about Vin Diesel. Well, it's like The Rock and Vin Diesel get compared a lot because they're in those movies. And like The Rock is crazy charming. The Rock has charisma and charm like this. I mean, like it's just oozing out of me. I don't care if you're the most uptight, caviar, champagne person. You like The Rock, and if you're live in a mobile home and eat, beanie weenie out of a can, no matter what, he's like universal, and everyone loves him. And he's charming as hell. And then the men love him, and the women love him, and every kids love him, everything. And like Vin Diesel doesn't have that at all, like at all. And maybe it's not a fair comparison because, they're two different people, but like there's a charm gap for me with Vin Diesel. That's the best way I could say it. There's like a giant charm gap. His charms and charismas that might be appealing to others have no effect on me whatsoever.
Well, he may be going the road of Seagal in that his roles have become more and more kind of interchangeable as he's gone on. Outside of Fast and Furious, so that's a disappointment. But it might be he just at some point him trying to do other stuff in the past and it not being hits. It's like, well, I'll just do with my moneymaker. This is what makes money is being the tough guy. I'll keep doing that. I don't know. I know he was quite good in Sidney Lumet's Find Me Guilty. He was quite good in that. It's a dramatic movie.
Yeah.
And
never got a shot.
And
sorry, I'm sorry.
But I did. I watched it. I thought it was good.
Was it legit good?
Movie.
Was it legit good? I mean, like, I'm not trying to be snarky or tacky, but like, was it good? Like, or I know you're a bit of a Vin Diesel fan, so was it good because you're a Vin Diesel fan, or was it good like just because it was a good movie?
Well, I think it was good because it's a Sidney Lumet movie. He's a legit director.
Yeah, but he was 98,000 years old when he made that.
Well, it was.
He died like 2 days after he got done shooting. No,
well, he was. It was clearly in the sunset of his career, but still, it was. It's a solid movie. If you go in there thinking it'll be as good as his 12 Angry Men, you're going to be maybe disappointed.
I feel like
that's a great movie.
I feel like I've turned you into a Vin Diesel apologist. Like you're making the case.
We've kind of gone that way now.
You're making the case. I'll back off. Vin Diesel is one of my favorite. Like everybody has like a punching bag, like a pop culture punching bag, and Vin Diesel is one of my pop culture punching bags.
Well,
I'm sure you have something you like to make fun of in pop culture. God, thank hell, I know you do. I know you make fun of music things to me all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
So I know you got your own little pop culture punching bags.
Yeah. Give me a second. I'll think of something.
Yeah, Vin Diesel's one of mine. I kind of like he's easy for me to pick on for some reason. All right, so to round it out, I'll do my second one. This is one that you and I had a conversation about, not on a podcast recently, but I've totally fallen in love with the movie. Here it is, like 13 years later. This is the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. I just saw myself say that title. That's one of the problems with why it didn't succeed. But that movie came out in 2007. I think the reason it didn't succeed is that's the same year you had No Country for Old Men. Mm-hmm. It's the same year you had There Will Be Blood. Mm-hmm. And then when you add, we'll just call it Assassination of Jesse James for brevity's sake. That was a similar vein movie, yet it was way slower than those other two, way longer, way more, even more artsy than the other two are, way more artsy. and I don't think it was a mainstream movie. However, I mean, it should have gotten way more probably awards attention. I think he got a technical for like probably like either set design. I know cinematography. The cinematography in it is like pristine. And the movie, actually, if you're a video game fan, the movie was key in influencing Red Dead Redemption 1. That game is heavily influenced by that movie, and then of course that carries over into the now legendary Red Dead Redemption 2. So if you're a fan of those games and you want like more of that type of content and feel, Assassination Jesse James is a go-to. And one of the interesting things about it to me is it's a Western. It takes place in that time, in that era, post Civil War, but before the turn of the century, that gap there. And it takes place mostly in like the Missouris and the Kansases and all that kind of stuff. It takes place in that part of the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but it's not cowboy boots. It's not cowboy hats. It's not spurs. It's derby hats. Three-piece suits. They don't dress like your traditional, what you're used to in a Western. It doesn't look like a John Wayne Western in terms of dress. The way they're dressed is definitely feels more realistic to like what they really did wear, at least in that region.
Mm-hmm.
So like the look of it is unique. It doesn't look like your average Western. And it's just the performance by Casey Affleck. He got nominated for supporting actor, and I'm not so sure he shouldn't have. Well, no, it was the same year Javier Bardem won for Chigurh. So he definitely was a runner-up to Chigurh, but Javier Bardem. But anyway, he was definitely deserved to be nominated in his company. Fantastic performance, really like layered, nuanced performance. Anyway, really good movie. It's not for everyone, and I don't know that it ever should have been. It should have made like $100 million. I'm not saying that, but it should have gotten more Oscar, that type of fame. It's, I think, like Nice Guys and like all these movies, the cult fame has risen up greatly. It's a beautiful movie. The soundtrack is amazing.
Well, that's an interesting one because that's one I didn't care for when it came out.
Yeah. I think I didn't like it that much either. I really didn't.
Slow, meandered, a lot of time killed.
Right.
Scenes that, frankly, would play out so long. It's like, what is the point of all this?
Right.
You literally ask yourself. So I found it more of a, well, I'm trying to think of a less negative thing to say, but it was not a good experience for me to watch. I didn't enjoy it. It was not something a trip I'd want to take again. That's for sure. It was just kind of unpleasant. To be honest with you,
it smelled foul.
Just the whole thing was just
bitter
unpleasant.
Taste in my mouth.
And it was, well, it just reminded me of just movies that like what was that movie? Michael Cimino directed that.
Don't you compare it to Heaven's Gate? Don't you dare do that. Don't you dare to compare it to Heaven's Gate.
Well, Heaven's Gate tended to be long and meandered. I thought the same kind of thing, It was just not to me. I didn't enjoy it.
The Jesse James movie had a plot that actually made sense, and it was coherent, and it went from step 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. The Heaven's Gate, it makes no logical sense whatsoever.
Well,
and I watched the long cut, so don't tell me I watched the
yeah.
I watched the long.
Heaven's Gate was a particularly bad movie, but the assassination of, good Lord, I can't even finish the rest of that sentence.
Yeah, we'll call it Jesse James. Let's call it Jesse James.
Jesse James. It was well, anyway, I didn't enjoy it. I don't want to rip a movie you're put on your list or whatever.
Well, I didn't rip Chronicles. I did rip Vin Diesel, so it's fair. It's fair game. You can rip it. I don't care. I didn't make the damn movie. It's not like my kid folk read it or something.
But I would just say, I guess apparently for our second choices, we're definitely in opposition.
I did notice that. It's like 2-2, like 2 wins, 2 losses.
One win and one loss.
We both agreed on our first one. Yeah, that movie should have done better. And our seconds were like, there's a reason it didn't do well.
Yeah, to me, the whole Jesse James thing, it's like it did. In fact, it did probably better than it deserved. To be honest with you, it's very arty.
Well, that director, I believe, again, we're not doing research. We're off the cuff here. I think he did that movie, Killing Them Softly, and that movie is unbearable. Did you ever watch that one? There was another Brad Pitt movie.
No.
And I
don't think I did anyway.
There's a whole like long section with James Gandolfini, where he's like half drunk and he just keeps mumbling, telling these like nonsensical things, and Brad Pitt's listening to him. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And I have no idea what the hell any of it's about. And from the story point of view, it sets up that Brad Pitt has to pull off the hit because James Gandolfini is in no shape to do it. But like you could have done that like in like a 2-minute scene, but they do it like it belabors this meandering long nonsense he spouts. So I think that director likes that meandering thing. It worked for me and Jesse James. It didn't work in Killing Them Softly. It didn't work for you at all.
No, I think there's something to be said for atmosphere, and I get part of that is like let's visit this world. Let's really inhabit the world a while, and bring that viewer into it, and let them feel like they're part of that world, and really divest into it.
Yeah.
So I get that, and when it works, if you're able to pull that off, great. But it so rarely works when you put so much into the atmosphere that at some point you're like, guys, but there's nothing in the plot that is advancing. We're just or you end up repeating yourself.
Yeah.
You don't want to have. You want to have a purpose to a slow scene, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And not everybody can pull that off. Not everybody can be like Andrei Tarkovsky. He was the slowest of all directors, but when he was slow, he usually had a purpose.
Okay.
I'll give him that.
Right.
But it didn't always work in his movies, but when it did, boy, it was great.
Yeah.
But this is an example, for me at least, of one where it didn't work.
Well, I say if you're listening to this or watching this, you give them all a shot. They're all, except for maybe Mark's opinion of Jesse James, they're all worth a lot. But I will say this: if you're a fan of that era, No Country for Old Men, There Will Be Blood, 2007, when those movies were made, which those two now are like classic, all-time classics. They're movies that will be regarded 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah.
I think it's a good footnote at minimum to me to those movies. It's like if you had a collection of books, it would be like one of the appendix books that would accompany those movies.
Yeah.
To me, but anyway, it is what it is. Some people are fans of it, some people ain't. Like I said, Fast and Furious, I can't watch any of them. And those things have made like $48 billion, million, trillion dollars. So what the hell I know?
Yeah, they're $1 billion franchise.
I can't. I've watched like 2 of them. I can't take it. Anyway, that's the way it is. So all right. So if you like those, go check them out. Or if you like those ideas, go check them out. And then we might do this again. This is kind of fun. It's a good topic. We'll put a pin in this topic and circle back to it at a later date.
Yeah, and let us know if y'all have some movies that were flops. You think that were good? Let us know.
I totally thought of those off the cuff. I didn't really prepare for that at all.
On that list, my last thought here, I saw that movie Ali. It was a Michael Mann film. Will Smith plays Muhammad Ali.
Never got around to watching it.
Well, I saw it at the theaters, and I didn't know that it was a bomb. Because I was like, what's it doing on this list? Because I was looking at this list, of course, of box office bombs, and there it was. And I'm like, what in the world? And apparently it did underperform big time.
Really?
And I just remember Michael Mann had gotten into this whole shaky camera and the handheld thing and the camera constantly moving.
Yeah.
And I hate that. if you do that, you better have a purpose like Spielberg on on Omaha Beach. There's a reason why he's handhelding, and shaky. But if you're just doing that because you think it looks more real, screw you. You're making me sick. I'm having to go get the Pepto-Bismol just to watch your movie because I feel sick. Knock it off.
Yeah, there's very few directors who can pull out. Paul Greengrass is like one of the few directors that can actually do that. And you don't want to cut his throat after you've watched the movie. It's like very few people.
Yeah, hit that was it Bourne Ultimatum?
Yeah,
one
of those. I don't know.
He went overboard for me on that one, but he did the was it is it U57? Not U57.
United 93.
United 93. That was a great movie, and it had shaky camera, so he was able to.
Depends on the context, I guess.
Yeah, he has been effective at doing that. Yeah. I will agree with that.
All right, before we go down any more rabbit trails about anything shaky, that's the way this is actually how our conversations go. So we're just really filming or taping a conversation because next thing you know, it's like we'll do a whole thing on shaky cam.
Exactly.
And then that'll lead to Hunger Games, and then I'll get pissed off we'll be pissed off about, hey, they over politicize something or other, and next thing you know, it's like,
well,
crazy stuff.
They know what one of my film pet peeves is now. Shaky camera. It's overdone, and usually 90% of the time, there's no purpose to it.
So your pet peeve is shaky cam, and my pet peeve is Vin Diesel's existence. So with that,
I'm with you, Vin.
Up to.